What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Tab Dump.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. We've got a killer lineup of topics today. Alex, I think you're most excited about today's topics. Am I right?
Who me? I'm always excited about the future of tech. But seriously, folks, we're talking about the creeping ad apocalypse, the business of gaming and safety, the future of content creation, and the tech giants in turmoil. It's a lot to digest.
Digest? You make it sound like a healthy lunch. More like a toxic stew of corporate greed and user data exploitation. But hey, we'll get into all that today.
Okay, Sam, you got me. But I do think there's some silver linings in all these topics. Like, have you seen the innovative ways gamers are pushing for better safety measures?
Yeah, I've seen the tweets. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to talk about the elephant in the room. The ad apocalypse. It's getting out of control.
Welcome back to the Tab Dump. I'm Alex. Today, we're talking about the creeping ad apocalypse, and I'm excited to dive into this topic. We've all seen it coming, but YouTube's unskippable ads are the start of something big.
Excited? Are you kidding me? Unskippable ads are the worst, and YouTube's going to make us suffer through them on our TVs too?
Well, that's a bit dramatic, but seriously, think about it. YouTube's got over 2 billion monthly active users, and they're generating $40 billion in revenue from ads. It's not going away.
That's a lot of money, I'll give them that, but is it really worth sacrificing our viewing experience?
I think it's worth exploring the trade-offs here. We get more content, for free, and a platform that's tailored to our interests. Maybe some ads are annoying, but they also help creators make a living.
But that's not the point. The point is, YouTube's starting to prioritize its own interests over our viewing experience. And what's next? Skippable ads on Netflix? Hulu? It's a slippery slope.
That's a bit hyperbolic. But I do think there's a bigger picture here. Advertising is shifting online, and YouTube's just catching up. Think about Facebook's algorithm changes or TikTok's ad platform. It's all part of the same trend.
Facebook's algorithm changes? That's a whole other can of worms. And TikTok's ad platform is still in its infancy. YouTube's just getting started, and it's going to be ugly.
Okay, but what about the creators? They're the ones who actually make YouTube worth watching. Unskippable ads are a way to monetize their content, and it's not all about the money.
I'm not saying that's not true, but what about the viewer who just wants to watch a 10-minute video without being interrupted? They're not asking for much.
But that's the thing. We're not just talking about YouTube here. We're talking about the entire online ad ecosystem. And if we start to value our time more, we might see some changes.
I'd like to see that, but until then, I'm going to keep using ad blockers. And I'm not the only one. There are millions of people out there who feel the same way.
That's true, but ad blockers have their own limitations. And what about the people who don't have the luxury of using them? They're the ones who need YouTube's revenue the most.
That's a valid point, but it's also a false dichotomy. We can't just say either you use ad blockers or you suffer through unskippable ads. There's a middle ground here.
I agree, but it's hard to find that middle ground when the incentives are so skewed. The ad industry's got a lot to answer for, and this is just the beginning.
I couldn't agree more, and it's not just the ad industry. It's also our own culpability. We're the ones who have enabled this ecosystem, after all.
Fair point, but that's also a call to action. We can start making changes now, and maybe, just maybe, we can avoid the creeping ad apocalypse.
I hope so, but for now, I'm just going to stick to my ad blockers.
So, we've been talking about the ad apocalypse in the gaming industry, but what about the state of game development itself?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. Game devs are taking huge risks, pouring their hearts and souls into a project, and then wondering if it's even going to break even.
I've seen some devs talking about the stress and uncertainty of not knowing if their game will succeed, and I think that's really tough to deal with.
It's not just the financial uncertainty, it's also the safety concerns. We've seen some pretty scary stories come out of the gaming community lately.
You're talking about the streamer who got shot, right? That was just awful.
Exactly. And it's not just the players who are at risk. We've also got stories about game devs who are intimidated or harassed online.
I think that's part of the reason we're seeing more game devs speaking out about mental health and self-care.
That's true, but it's also part of the reason why some devs are starting to rethink their business models and prioritize safety.
Like what? Are they switching to subscription-based models or something?
Well, some are, but it's not a silver bullet. Subscription models can be just as predatory as upfront fees, if not more so.
But don't you think that's a step in the right direction? I mean, if devs can get a more stable revenue stream, maybe they'll be less stressed and less vulnerable to harassment.
I'm not sure that's necessarily true. We've seen some high-profile devs who have switched to subscription models and still struggle with the same issues.
What about the indie devs who are trying to make a name for themselves? They're often the ones who are most vulnerable to financial uncertainty and online harassment.
That's true, and it's a huge problem, but I think we also need to be careful not to romanticize the struggle of being an indie dev.
What do you mean by that? Do you think we're glorifying the struggles of indie devs too much?
Well, I think we often focus on the stories of devs who made it big and ignore the ones who don't. It's not just a matter of perseverance and hard work. There are systemic issues at play here.
That's a fair point, but what about the role of events like GDC? We've seen some devs talking about how they're skipping GDC this year because of safety concerns.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. GDC is supposed to be a celebration of gaming culture, but it's actually become a source of stress and anxiety for some devs.
I think that's part of the reason why we need to start thinking about the business model of gaming itself. What are the underlying assumptions that drive the way we make and distribute games?
Exactly, and I think that's what's so exciting. We're finally starting to have some real conversations about the future of gaming and what we want it to look like.
So, what do you think is the future of gaming? Do you see a shift towards subscription models or something entirely new?
Honestly, I think it's too early to say, but I do think that the next generation of gaming will be more focused on sustainability, safety, and community building.
That sounds pretty idealistic to me, but I think you're right. We need to start thinking about gaming as a community, rather than just a series of individual products.
It's not idealistic, it's just practical. When you're making a living from gaming, you want to make sure that you're not burning out or putting yourself at risk.
Fair enough, but I think we're just getting started on this conversation. There's a lot more to explore, and I'm excited to see where it goes. We've been talking about the evolution of content creation all episode, and I have to say, the rise of AI-generated content is blowing my mind.
I'm not sure I'm blown away, Alex. Generating a 5-second AI video in under a minute is impressive, but what's the point?
The point is, it's a game changer for creators. No more tedious editing, no more expensive equipment. Just hit a button and you've got a polished video.
But at what cost? Report after report shows that these AI-generated videos are basically indistinguishable from the real thing. And I'm not convinced that's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing. It democratizes content creation. Anyone can make a high-quality video without breaking the bank or needing a team of professionals.
Democratization is one thing, but do we really want to create a world where authenticity is sacrificed for the sake of convenience?
Authenticity is subjective. What one person considers authentic, another might see it as cheesy or amateurish. And besides, AI-generated content can still be unique and creative.
But what about the creators who are already struggling to make ends meet? Do they really want to compete with AI-generated content that's essentially free?
Not to dismiss the struggles of human creators, but I think AI-generated content can coexist with human-created content. It's just a different niche.
A different niche? YouTube just announced they'll be showing longer, unskippable ads on their platform, and that's a huge blow to creators trying to monetize their content.
I think that's a short-term pain for a long-term gain. Creators will adapt, just like they did when YouTube switched to demonetizing certain types of content.
But what about the creators who are already adapting? They're the ones who are trying to build their audiences and monetize their content, only to have the rug pulled out from under them.
I think there's an opportunity for creators to diversify their income streams. Podcasts, live streaming, affiliate marketing, the options are endless.
Endless? I'm not sure I'd call the current landscape endless options. It's more like explore these 5-6 options or die trying.
But that's the beauty of it. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. Creators can experiment, find what works for them, and build a sustainable career.
Sustainable career? The gaming industry is a prime example of how unsustainable the current content creation model is. Crunch time, burnout, and exploitation are rampant.
The gaming industry is a unique beast, but I think we can apply some of the lessons learned there to other areas of content creation, prioritizing creator well-being and fair compensation. Welcome back to the Tab Dump, folks. We've got some more tech giants in turmoil to dive into today.
You think that's a surprise? Oracle's been struggling for years, but now they're under pressure from over $100 billion in debt and massive layoffs.
That's a big number, but it's worth noting that Oracle still makes a ton of money. They're just having trouble paying it back.
But that's exactly my point. They can't just keep throwing money in at their problems. At some point, you have to wonder if the business model is sustainable.
I think the model is fine. It's just the companies being mismanaged. They need to modernize and adapt to the changing tech landscape.
But what does that even mean? They're a software company, for crying out loud. They should be investing in AI and cloud computing, not clinging to their legacy database business.
Not everyone needs to be a cutting-edge AI startup, though. Oracle still has a huge customer base. It's just hard to let go of that cash cow.
That's exactly my problem. They're prioritizing short-term gains over long-term sustainability. And it's not just Oracle. We see this all over the tech industry.
You know, it's kind of like what we talked about earlier with the creeping ad apocalypse. Tech companies are under so much pressure to grow and show profits that they're willing to sacrifice everything else.
Exactly. But what about Meta? They're another tech giant in turmoil. And this time it's over some questionable legal tactics.
Yeah, I saw that. Meta's trying to redefine what constitutes fair use for pirated books, which is just wild.
Wild is one way to put it. It's basically an attempt to rewrite copyright law and profit off people's ignorance of what's actually fair use.
But think about it. If Meta can redefine fair use for books, maybe they can do the same thing for music or movies. That could be a huge win for consumers.
And maybe that's exactly what they're counting on. You know, I think this is all part of a larger trend where tech companies just don't care about ethics or consequences anymore. They just care about growth and profits.
That's a pretty cynical take, but I see what you mean. It's just Meta's always been a bit of a wild card, you know?
Yeah, but what about the business of gaming we talked about earlier? That's another industry where we see similar tactics being used, prioritizing profit over safety and consumer well-being.
Ugh, I don't even want to get into that one, but I do think there's a bigger picture here. We need to start holding tech companies accountable for their actions.
Finally, something we can agree on.
And speaking of accountability, what do you think about the role of regulators in all this? Should they be doing more to rein in companies like Oracle and Meta?
Well, that's a whole other can of worms, but I do think regulators need to start taking a harder line on these companies, especially when it comes to antitrust and data protection.
I think that's a great point, and I think it's something we should be exploring more in our next episode.
Definitely. Time's up for today. Folks, thanks for tuning into the Tab Dump.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, folks. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the tech world.
No problem, it's always a blast. I think my favorite topic today was actually the creeping ad apocalypse. Alex, you made some good points about how ads can be more invasive and creepy, but I think we might be focusing too much on the symptom rather than the root cause.
I see what you mean, Sam. I was hoping to get into that a bit more, but we didn't quite have time. But I still think it's worth talking about. I mean, have you seen those ads that use AI to personalize your messages? That's some next-level creepy stuff.
I actually think that the business of gaming and safety discussion was the most interesting. We touched on some really important issues about online harassment and toxicity in gaming communities, but I think we only scratched the surface.
Totally agree with you, Sam. I think that's a conversation we need to have more often. I mean, the gaming industry is a huge part of the tech world, and we need to make sure we're keeping players safe. I'm just worried that we might be pushing some of the responsibility onto the players themselves.
I don't think that's entirely fair, Alex. We're not saying that players don't have a responsibility to report abuse and harassment, but at the same time, game developers and platforms need to do more to create a safe and welcoming environment for everyone.
All right, I think we can agree to disagree on that one, Sam. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. We'll catch you in the next episode.
Yeah, see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media, folks.